Alrighty, everyone. Good morning. I hope you guys are doing well. Good afternoon, good evening, good night, depending on where you are. Our racers are half a world apart, so time zones are definitely a thing. I appreciate everyone hanging out and, of course, coming over to support the tournament as always. Today, we're going to have our last match of the lower bracket, which is going to be Mashia versus Mini, and the winner is going to be going on to face Turkey in the finals. So I'm going to go ahead here, and I'm going to get my co-commentator online. Alrighty, Diane should be with me now. Can you hear me, Diane? Like he's muted for the moment. That's okay.
Yeah, I was muted. I forgot I was already talking.
That's okay. Hey, it's okay. You've done your deed for the day. You just had an awesome run for charity over on the Pixels for People marathon. So it's okay. Your brain has been spent for the day.
Basically, yes. But yeah, I'm here to co-commentate with you on this amazing run between Messiah and MiniSebrango. For as far as I can tell, this is going to be another really close match, even though they might be like a world apart. They're really relatively close together. Like each simple small mistake, like missing a wall jump, for example, can, in my opinion, easily sway the lead here. But we'll see. Messiah has been popping off recently, so I don't know.
It's anybody's game for sure.
Well, here we go. Looks like we're getting through chapter 0, as most of us call it. And the thing we want to look out for most is to see how many of those ledge boosts they can get, which means they're basically jumping off the end of a platform at the very last second just to go a bit 4 frames faster. So the first chapter teaches you all about that, and we just want to go fast. Because even though, even though those things are very small, like 4 frames, you can get them quite a lot in the early game. So it's going to add up really quickly, eventually gaining you seconds.
Yeah, it's really one of those things that runners will tend to try and kind of layer on as an additional strat because it's a kind of a free time save if you can get it in certain areas. In a lot of places, there's not necessarily any risk, like that little checkpoint, for example. There's no risk in doing it off of there. Runners may opt out once you get into more convoluted and complex setups of areas because it's just not worth it for the sake of saving a couple frames. But and even later, it's going to be canceled out by the dash. But for this early game, and especially for stage 1, you're going to see them kind of going for as many as possible here.
Yeah, and a few damage boosts here and there make our lives easier as well. The first one is, in my opinion, particularly important to get. You either need to stand in front of it and try and do a turnaround boost, or you just do it mid-air, which is kind of difficult. We often make it look quite easy.
Yeah, those purple guys at the start just have way too much health to consider actually sitting there and damaging down. So one way or another, you want to get through without spending the time.
Yeah, and one of the things we just passed is one of the steam vents. You can actually use that to check how fast you're going, because as soon as you enter that room, it starts on a global room timer, and those steam vents tell you whether you're on your pace or not. So more often than not, it tells when runners need to manipulate birds, for example. But right now we have a nice vertical climb. We just have to wait until it rotates, and then we're already up to the first boss, which is the Smasher. And the Smasher smash things, and if it smashes you, you're dead. I can't make it any clearer than that, I think.
Pretty simple concept. The second time it smashes down, it gets this little fire trail that it releases from side to side, assuming that it's less than halfway, or it has less than half of the health remaining. And your reward for beating this pretty trivially easy mini boss is a full HP upgrade, which is actually quite nice.
Yeah, it allows us to damage boost even more. I mean, the run is already quite dangerous. Why not make it even worse? But yeah, this is also a really tight global room timer cycle. The runners here opt to take a few damage boosts to try and get this platform. They're both coming up right now. I mean, they're pretty much in sync. So they're taking out the rust flies as they go. And both of them has made the cycle quite nicely. And if they made this one, they can go for the third one, which is at the end of this room, where you also need to take a damage boost of a bullet fired from either the top turret or the mid turret. And they both got it, so yeah, this is just pretty much in sync. I don't know what to say. Let's hope both of them get this ledge boost as well. Meshia seems to get it. Oh yeah, MiniSebrango is of course on 144 Hz, which means that ledge clips are going to be more of an issue. But looking at MiniSebrango's time and consistency, I doubt he will need the ledge clips.
Yeah, you're probably going to see him pick up a little bit of time here on the operator fight. So no ledge clips on anything above 60 FPS, and if you are though, you do get a little bit of an attack speed boost from what we've noticed. So Mini should be able to finish this fight off with a little more ease. Meshia, of course, though, has this nice little kind of step forward strat to even avoid damage that we normally take, and might have to clip the toenail. Let's see. Nope, very good. And Mini.
No one's. Yeah, needed to clip a toenail. But both excellent fight, really, really well executed. It's quite hard to get him down to such low health before you can actually try and attempt to clip even toenails. So with that, we get our first upgrade, which is a really neat shuriken. It's a green marble in a pocket we keep somewhere. So now that we are on 1.04, we have two versions of the shuriken. The one that is powered up with SP and the one that isn't. And the thing that we want to use the most in this chapter is the SP version, which basically makes you throw the shuriken all the way to the end. And the other variant is basically where you throw it and it just outbeats the range of your sword. Both runners opting here to grab the extra SP upgrade, making it a bit easier on themselves while they're running.
You see Mini had to wait there because he couldn't ledge clip, similar to Meshia, so she is going to pick up a little bit of time there. And that's kind of going to be the theme of these ledge clips, as long as Meshia ends up continuing to hit them consistently, is they do make up a considerable amount of time over the course of the run. And again, this is something that's more so limited to prior to getting dash, so it's something that for the first half of the game you're going to see kind of Meshia take advantage of whenever possible, and Mini's going to hopefully make it up over the course of the whole run, basically in all fights.
Well, Meshia had to take a death ward because he was on 1 HP after bug room, so that's going to give Mini already a bit of time to catch up. The difference is quite small, like 1 or 2 seconds taking the death ward over the normal exit, but it does add up.
She got the backwards D-boost off the end of the laser. The laser normally kills you automatically, but right at the end there's kind of this trail that you can get hit by and you'll just take normal damage. So you jump up and you actually want to take a backwards damage boost off the enemy in that section when just entering the room. It can just be a little bit tough.
Yeah, and then we head off to a boss of chapter 2. It's basically a mini boss. It's the laser brain, and your point being is they grab a blade extend from the previous checkpoint that gives us just the little bit of amount of range we need to hit the weak point one time extra. And they make quick work of it because once you hit the weak point, you deal more damage, and that's what we want to do, try and hit the weak point. But it's really tough trying to hit both weak points at the same time. And both runners seem to do it quite formidably, if I may say so. And Meshia is already up to the first auto-scroller of the game, which is an elevator. And it's quite an infamous one, but recently we actually know how to manipulate our routing so that we don't accidentally get hit from rust drives from below and end up painfully in spikes. I'm not talking from experience, you are.
I see Nori mentioning in chat, there was an attempt to balance the sword speed between different settings in 1.04, along with the idea of bringing ledge clips to frame rates above 60. My understanding is it didn't pan out as intended from what other runners have said. I know that runners have mentioned they're still not able to ledge clip when above 60 FPS. And I did see I've seen both mixed things. I've seen some individuals say that they feel like the sword speed has been balanced at higher frame rates to match lower, but I've also seen individuals say that they don't feel it's actually changed. So I don't know if that's just perception of the new patch, But I don't think it all kind of flushed out the way that it was intended. Which is obviously, like, it's a very modest difference to 99% of individuals. We just notice it as runners.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, on 60 FPS, I noticed we have a bit more range on the sword now, which is really nice, I'm not gonna lie. The extra range does help quite a lot.
It must be a nightmare to try and balance between so many variants and variables when it comes to PCs and, like, frame rates and hardware, and just, like, that is, like, the nightmare case, trying to make that ideally balanced situation, especially for us.
Yeah, even on console, on PC, all the different platforms you're releasing your game on, it's going to be very, very hairy. But yeah, Messiah is already up to the second boss of the second chapter, which is Scrambler, and you basically beat him and try to jump out of his attacks as soon as possible. And at the very last end, he has a small desperation attack where the brain jumps out of the suit and still tries to kill you. While he jumps over you and tries to shoot you, but the blade extend makes it easier so you can jump a little bit earlier in the air and hit him just a bit earlier. Which is, of course, a really nice thing to have. Always slash the Legion, I guess. But yeah, with that, we're already onwards to Chapter 3, and Chapter 3 is where Messiah can gain a lot more time compared to MiniSebrango, because Chapter 3 features a lot of ledge clips that have been found, and will be properly integrated. English, help.
Chapter 3 is also one of those stages that, like, after the first couple stages, all the cycles and the trash room and stuff like that, Chapter 3 I find a lot of runners generally find more relaxing on kind of across the whole stage than maybe a couple of the previous stages, and certainly less daunting and terrifying than all the spikes that get introduced in 4. Stage 3 is kind of like pure platforming through and through. It's very horizontal in nature. There's not too many vertical sections. You see our runners having kind of an up and down high five on the train here in this damage boost section. But a lot of this stage is oriented around just lots of enemies. There's a couple instant death pits, but nothing too excessive. There's not really any instant death spikes. So this stage just plainly tries to kill you through damage and hurling every enemy it can at you.
Yeah, that's basically the gist of the stage. Even though it might be stretched out, it's not to be underestimated, because you do take certain damage boosts at certain points that can still knock you into pits if you're not careful.
Both of these runners have been PBing recently too. Messiah recently got its first couple 55s. So that was incredible. The first one happened, it was a higher 55, and then immediately after with a 55-20. And I know Mini's had a couple PBs recently, had a tournament race PB, and then actually PB'd since then, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So both of our runners here today have been bringing their times down steadily as the tournament has gone on.
Yeah, it's what the tournament did to a lot of people. It's really amazing to see how people try to improve, adapt, and still try to overcome the issues we might get while trying to play this game. I mean, I think just about everyone has gotten a PB during the tournament or just after. I'm not too sure on that.
I would agree with you on that. There are very few names that I saw on that list that didn't PB in Prep 4 or during, like, we had a string of like 3 races in a row that had PBs. It's amazing to see. Here's Hunter Tank. It's nothing too exciting. It's got, well, cannons on top, and they fire little projectiles, and this is kind of something you can just damage down through. There's not really too much threat. You're always going to basically out DPS Hunter. I always want to say Hunter Tank, sorry. But you're always going to out DPS as long as you kind of just stand there and continuously slash.
Yeah, you see various runners adopt different strategies, but like you said, out DPSing is basically the way to go. since you have all the options. You have Rising Fire if you have SP, deal even more damage. Try avoid the mini turrets. Just missing this line there.
Nice,
but it's okay, he powered through. That's amazing. You need to have a lot of faith in the game and in your skills to be able to just power through missing the snipe, to be fair.
Yeah, it looks like Mini got it, which is, it's just a really tough star to hit. If you're just a hair too high, it hits the wall and doesn't even stand a chance, and if you're too low, it just goes right on by.
Yeah, it's always a bit scary. Try and see if you can get it. I mean, Mini is right up there trying to get through this room. He'll be attempting to hit the switch on the far left side. He's going to either throw 1 or 2 shurikens. Mostly safe to use 2 here, so he can get the early platform rising up here and get around on his way to Biohunter. Ooh, he avoided the...
When you go for the backwards D-boost, but you don't actually touch the enemy.
Yeah, that. But yeah, Biohunter is one of the fights where we buy another upgrade. This time it's the Swag Blade, because Biohunter hangs in the air and we don't really have any measure of getting close to him, except for a few toenail clip moments. So what we're doing is we're manipulating the Swag Blade by jumping up and down, hitting him while he's airborne, try and skip his cycle, jump a few times, get around the first cycle, hit him a few times. And that's basically it, until he fires his big laser, goes down, as you can see on the mini side. We tried to manipulate the Swag Blade again to get a couple early hits in. Nice kill from Mini.
Yeah, phase 1 threw Mini, I think, for a moment because had a little more sideways momentum in the Swag Blade than ideal. Normally at the start of that fight for phase 1, you basically just want to stand under where Biohunter spawns and jump up and down to cause the Swag Blade to hit him directly above you. I don't know how the sideways momentum got introduced. Maybe it just wasn't quite where he should have been standing and decided to move, but the end result was the blade was swinging around Biohunter, not connecting with him, so missed a lot of that early damage. Was still able to get kind of the normal cycle, but it just took a little bit longer.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate side effect of... ooh, nice show off there, Mini. I don't know exactly how that works yet, but we after the fight, if we still have the Swag Blade, we bring it into the cave where we are now, just to hit a bomb that is up there. Save about 4 seconds earlier. But then again, the Swag Blade does make the monkey climb a bit tougher, as the Swag Blade can break boxes. So we're trying to manipulate the Swag Blade as we're going through the shrine. As you can see on Meshia's side. In this case, it broke the box earlier, so that can help. But if it breaks a box you're trying to use to get a bit of a boost down, that's going to be rough, because then you have to take a detour, basically.
Yeah, Mekaskull is kind enough to patch this for us, because we were wanting to bring the Swag Blade in, and it used to hit the lanterns in this monkey shrine as it does normally outside of it. But Mecha was nice enough to patch it in more recent patches to make it not hit those lanterns and only contact the boxes in that shrine specifically. Shoutouts to friendly devs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I found it odd at first that it was specifically that room, but it makes it really nice to have it there. That's going to cost a little bit of time on Meshia's side. So at the beginning of Chapter 4, there are 2 switches in a left and a right room. And if you have your Swag Blade with you, yeah, it can, of course, sometimes kill enemies and make you land in the water, which is not really the nicest thing to happen. But you need to hit both switches to go through the door to get into the next part of Chapter 4. This is where the game basically shifts into second gear, because you got lulled into a false sense of security with Chapter 3 being all nice and kind to you. But this chapter basically reintroduces all the spikes, all the pits, and all the enemies with your current unlocked abilities. And that's going to be a bit rough sometimes.
I feel like Mini made up a little bit of time on those switches. Left switch was definitely cleaner. Didn't get the long shot on the right switch, but immediately knew he was going to miss it and followed up and just didn't really lose any time aside from just those couple seconds. Mashia took a couple baths in the water and spent a little more time dealing with opening that door, so Mini just had a chance to make up at least a few seconds. And we'll see how the rest of 4 goes, because the big equalizer is still yet to come.
That can basically be anywhere, but if you're meaning a certain RNG snake, yeah, that can be anyone's game at that point. But first off, we have shoddy security. We usually are supposed to, you know, hit the switch and see the nice explosion of congratulations, you defeated the door, but instead we just throw shuriken, open the door, and that's it. Ooh, is he going for it? He's going for it. He's actually doing it. Mashia there taking the damage boost, which is called another strategy. Taking the damage boost to try and make an early platform cycle. In his case, he actually used a shuriken and the pogo at the same time to kill an enemy that's the only basically enemy that stands in his way to make that cycle. So that's really scary if you go for it. And it only saves a couple of seconds. So to do that in a race setting, kudos.
Yeah, I think that's one of the newer strats too, because it's only been around for, I want to say maybe the duration of just shortly. I guess more or less was developed, I think, just before the tournament, if I'm not mistaken. But we've kind of seen a lot of people adopt it over the lifespan of the tournament, and no disrespect for anyone that doesn't want to go for it. It's a really risky strat, knowing how far back that last checkpoint is in comparison to the 4 seconds you could potentially gain.
The time loss is, I think, almost a minute long compared to 4 seconds, so the risk definitely isn't worth it. Especially because you have to beat that blue eye pillar again, all the way to the floor, and you have to go through all the cycles again. Yeah, it's definitely not worth it. Mini is certainly catching up to Meshia here. He has a bit of part of a few cleaner rooms, but Meshia, of course, had a luck on his side where the big RNG squid there gave him a nice pattern, so it's easy to hop through. Let's see how it goes on Mini side. Oh, he spawns in the middle. That's also a fairly reasonable pattern. Let's see. Oh, takes a damage boost because that snake there, that wall snake, that I don't think we have a name for that one yet, right?
I feel like the rest of the names got released, but I'm honestly not the guy that's been paying attention to it. I only know Knock Knock because it was mentioned like directly to me, and I found it hilarious.
Oh yes,
I have no idea of any of the other enemy names. I haven't been following up.
I've been trying to see, but there's still a few missing, and it looks like they decided to finish up. So I guess one of the enemies in Chapter 6, called the Angry Sun, is now canon, I guess.
Love it.
But yeah, RNG-wise, the Great Equalizer is here. We have a Mecha Dragon on our side, and usually we believe that he spawns on the side with the least platforms, but knowing Mecha Dragon, he just spawns completely on the opposite side, and you'll have nowhere where he ends up. And he either snakes around left to right, or he goes up and down. So you have to take note of the platforms, you have to take note of his random location, and you need to make sure that you have platforms ready for him when he comes. But he destroys them! So it makes it a really annoying boss. And one way we use is to hit 2 platforms, jump in the water, so we know he spawns on either side. So we can force him to spawn on either side if we, for example, jump in the water and have the platforms ready. Both runners actually getting 3 cycle, which is really nice. They're going into the Snake Shrine, which has a crystal that spawns ninjas. And you don't want those ninjas to land on the floor, ever. They're annoying, they block your attacks, and they eat up your time. There's a little bit of RNG involved in the spawn location, which is either to the far left, far right, or the upper corners. As you can see on the mini side, he's getting a bit of a worse RNG, getting left and right spawns, but he has quite enough time to make up for it as they unlock the next ability, which is basically an attack up, so we can now deal 2 damage per sword swing. That's up.
And in addition to the additional damage, it lets us destroy this kind of subset of walls that have been placed around the next few stages, which is eventually going to kind of become moot because those are going to be replaced by walls that then take a charge slash to destroy. What you're going to see our runners doing now is, I see she has already taken 1 damage on the blaster sub-weapon. One of 2 schools of thought going forward here. I mean, ultimately you want to avoid taking damage because you just want to avoid taking damage, but our runners have 2 options for a potential upcoming pair of skips. They can either carry this blaster through over to the next stage and through a couple bosses, or and we see Mini just took a damage on the blaster here. So both of our runners are probably going to opt into getting the E field. There's a couple different nuances with how the skips work between the E field and the blaster, but it's the same concept in general for both. So our runners are essentially going to be picking up the sub weapon, aiming to deal as much damage to this boss as possible while also not getting hit.
Yeah, the only nuance is basically where you deal damage earlier instead of somewhere else. So the E field has, for example, an advantage of getting skipped to earlier, but where the blaster can kill Alpha 2 faster, for example. So it balances each other out. It depends on what your preference is and what you've practiced more, in my opinion.
Yeah, the E field kind of makes Alpha 1 a little more difficult just by the nature of how we do the fight, because it's a very counter heavy, or a very parry heavy fight. Our runners just picked up the parry ability, which lets them parry not only projectiles but things like shockwaves and even certain enemies in some cases, like the little orbs that go around platforms. And what our runners are going to be trying to do is essentially keep this E field for the sake of doing a skip. When they come across Alpha 1, there's a couple different schools of thought on how you can tackle the fight if you're still wanting to make good use of parries. Some runners will turn around and kind of parry the shot and their back, that way the E field doesn't block the projectile. Others will slash in time to make sure that the little crescent fires out and the shield is not deployed when the projectile is fired at them. But either way, it kind of adds a little extra layer to the Alpha 1 fight that you don't normally have to think about.
Yeah, the difference is being that how far you can take your sub-weapon. Because if you take already too much damage, it just might be faster to take a little bit of extra damage, lose the sub-weapon after the fight. Oh no, wait, that's a different part I'm talking about. Now, after you get the first skip, you can get a choke animation where Alpha first appears. And basically, if your sub-weapon is already too damaged and you're not too sure whether you're going to get the second skip or not, it's better to take a bit of damage there to save yourself some time getting choked. I mean, you lose a bit of time avoiding the skip, but it doesn't make up for it if you can't make the second skip. But I think both our runners are going to opt for it, as Meshia already is using the E field to hit off-screen switch there, which is the first skip, saves about 25 to 30 seconds. It's really nice to have. Of course, you need to take note of those snake enemies. They sometimes can troll around. And this is exactly what I was talking about. The first appearance of Alpha. If you have like 1 HP on your sub-weapon, it's usually not worth it to go for it, but you know, some of our runners are pretty bold and they can actually do the entire chapter damageless somehow, which is really amazing.
Yeah, neither of our runners have actually taken damage. Meshia took 1 damage to the E field during the previous boss fight in the last chapter, so both of them have had a really good start to this chapter so far.
This looks really promising, to be fair. They're still neck and neck. I mean, Meshia is only ahead by literal half a biohunter, I think. Not even. I should actually try and make that metric into a thing, like a Biohunter entry door, for example.
You could definitely time out each phase, so then you could have a rough reference for how much time it actually means. But for those that haven't been following the tournament, essentially Biohunters have become a joking reference of time for Cyber Shadowrunners during the tournament.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that, because I was about to forget that.
Alright, Machi with a very safe Alpha 1 opted to just kind of not go for the parry strats and block the projectiles with the shield.
Mini actually did get quite a few parries in, cost him 1 health on the sub-weapon, but those parries did a lot more damage, so his fight was a lot faster and cleaner. So that's the difference between opting for a safer fight, keeping your shield or making sure that you can get the second skip, or like you mentioned earlier, swiping the shield away so you have the crescent part, hitting Alpha 1, and then going for a parry.
And he's getting chased by the Space Narc Orb.
Oh no, oh no.
Okay, it's gone.
Please. Yeah, it's quite funny actually, because you can basically slash 2 blocks and it gets stuck behind those 2 blocks. Well, it has enough space to go between those 2 blocks. Maybe I shouldn't scream that too loud in case my cat's watching. But it cannot squeeze through those 2 blocks, and it's kind of weird.
The orb of attraction. For those that weren't witness to it, unfortunately, that orb can basically chase you for a long duration of that path. And Space Narc, unfortunately, got right to the end of the wall, and then it just full-on bodied him right into the wall, just squish. You hate to see it, so it's yeah, it's the Space Narc orb.
Oh god, it has a new name now.
Sorry, not sorry.
Okay, sorry. Both of our runners actually got the skip because the E field on the right side can still hit the switch off screen, which basically keeps keeps our ninja capsuled, which is above the shrine currently, and they unlock the dash.
Yeah, unfortunately, the side effect of doing the skip is we leave one of the Ninja Clan members just right. Oh no! Well, Mashia still broke it, so we still freed him. Nice. And Mini
they
too.
Both got it. Freedom!
We saved the animals, everybody.
Yeah, but with the dash unlocked, you can see our runners immediately adopt it into something that is very odd sometimes, because you dash and then you can initiate a pogo at the same time to increase your distance. So we cross an entire spiked floor section that we usually press a button for to make the floor appear, but instead we just dash and pogo. But now we're going to pick up the speed, which is basically shifting the game into the 3rd gear, and you get chapter 6 and it eases you more into using the dash, because the most useful part about the dash is while you have SP, you will regain SP every time you use the powered up version of the dash, as long as you hit an enemy.
Worth noting too, our runners both had the E field, and they both actually intentionally ditched it just before entering this stage. We've seen it, I think, only once in the tournament, but what can happen is when you're going to climb that section just before you enter 6, as mentioned, there was the elevator button there, and sometimes if you turn around to slash the wall, you can also fire the crescent projectile, and it activates the elevator, and it turns into this whole mess of a thing where you can lock yourself out of the room for a moment. So our runners basically say, we don't need it. Oh, Mini, no. Mini, unfortunately, took a death into some spikes off a projectile there.
I was gonna say I'm not very familiar with that happening or anything, but unfortunately that death is going to add up a little bit, but thank god chapter 6 is quite quick, as there are still only 1 room apart from one another. And that tells you how skilled our runners are, by only having a small difference still, even though taking a death is usually considered to be very slow. So Meshia is right up there with Tunnel Cleaner. So the thing we try to do is we get our first slash in, and then he fires a lot of projectiles, which we use our parry for. And somehow this boss likes to fire a lot of projectiles, so instead he decides to throw bombs at us, which in his case isn't really the best option to do, because we disable the bombs and then throw it back right at them.
So you can see a couple variations of this fight here, and the neat thing about it is, realistically, there's a couple different methods which all basically shake out to be the same time. But you can essentially control when this boss is going to open based on when you choose to slash it. So our runners will be applying damage within certain thresholds. They'll actually be hesitating at certain times to make sure the eye is open to receive later attacks, and they'll cluster bombs together to also stack damage when possible. Not all strats use the cluster bomb, but it's just funny because there's like at least 3 or 4 strats that all shake out to be almost the exact same length of fight.
Yeah, it's interesting because one strategy is safer than the other. Basically, the double bomb strategy that most runners use abuses the pattern of getting it, but the fun thing about this is that you need to hit the eye a bit earlier. So you can do that on the opening phase. Wait, that's just me talking about strats. Let's get back into the run, because runners are actually already in the outskirts, and this is the knock-knock enemy you were talking about, with Mini on the other knock-knock and Meshia on the other one. And the difference is platforms and spikes. So if you thought the first, unfortunately taking death there, but the knock-knock is dead, so he doesn't have to worry about that again.
This is a stage that's a real nightmare without SP. If you come into this stage with no SP, it's generally a lot more difficult to kind of find that momentum and then get started, whereas if you have some to spare, you can kind of feed off of dash attacking certain enemies, boxes, crates, etc. We see Meshia is making use of the Orbiter, which is going to be the only time you're going to see it in the run. Not all runners opt to pick it up. It's basically going to be taken away right now by this free SP dispenser, because SP is going to be king for the rest of the run. But for the short time that you have it, and assuming that you can, make the sacrifice of the currency to buy it, then you're going to make some use of it. Meshia took a step back here. That was I'm not sure the reason for that pause there. Doubled back into the room after getting some essence, which, I mean, it's always nice to have some extra essence. Maybe just had to think about resetting the cycle. But yeah, our runners basically want to keep this. It looked
like a cycle reset.
Our runners basically want to keep this SP dispenser for as long as possible.
Yeah, it's a pretty daunting task, because this SP dispenser dispenses SP, which means we can dash a lot more during the run. That's also a reason why we want to keep it as long as possible. Gives you options to stronger abilities as well. You only have 3 chances, and after that it's gone. So the thing is, we're trying to take this one, preferably the entire way, all the way up to EXO, because as soon as you get to EXO with an SP dispenser, you get free essence back. How that works? Magic!
Cyber section is not necessarily too daunting, but we actually have to go through the full section in this one. A little high five there for our runners.
Yeah, with that cyber section for Meshia behind him, he's going to unlock all his abilities, which basically shifts the game into the 4th gear, as I call it. You have now unlocked everything, and the game is like, okay, nice, we'll unlock everything too! So you get Chapter 8, which is really one of the hardest chapters in the entire game, which throws everything at you. And you're not even there yet. There's more chapters to come, so it's a taste of what to expect, basically.
In terms of actual time difference, Meshia entered the Dragon Shrine at 37:01, and we see Mini at 37:35. Yeah, 34-second difference between them. That is a very small margin in terms of Cyber Shadow and what can happen in endgame. Anyone can take a death, a distance from a checkpoint, for example, and have it be pretty costly. So this is still very much anyone's race going into the back half.
It's basically a Phase 1 Biohunter apart.
Yeah, what did the dragon give us? It powered up everything. What do you mainly need to know about? We're going to be utilizing some charge attacks and double jump, because double jump tends to break games. In this case, it's going to be super helpful, not only in terms of just general mobility, but jumping out of dash attacks, continuing those chain dashes. We see Bashia is opting to top up the SP dispenser there. If you're basically confident that you can carry this dispenser through to EXO, it's never a bad choice, because you know you're going to get that currency back. Unfortunately, taking a death after a little bit of a rough room, and is going to have to reset left to right to make sure the platforms are on the typical cycle. So that's going to give Mini a chance to make up a little bit for those earlier deaths.
That makes it actually really smart. He bought it beforehand.
Yeah, it paid off extra the moment that death happened.
Yeah, but they still have a cyber dive room to go through, and it's not one of the easier ones in my opinion. It's still designed to throw a lot of things at you while you're actually trying to keep the SP dispenser alive for as long as possible. You have a bunch of enemies here, and it spawns extra security buttons like the previous cyber dive room. But the problem with these ones are there's one at the top here, and they're not too nice. So the trick here is to basically keep 1 HP on the top one, drop down, hit the bottom one as fast as possible, and then dash through it, for example, so you can quickly get out of there. So Meshia, actually really smart move there. While he was waiting for the cyber dive doors to open, he already was throwing out his shuriken, saving just a second of time for waiting. Because what we usually do is we stand in front of EXO and then throw our shurikens. But Mini also adopting the same strategy, so yeah, it looks to be really, really fine right now for both of our runners. But this is the part where I talked about earlier. If you can keep your SP dispenser to EXO, it doesn't dispense SP but money, essence. I think it's a reward for taking the SP dispenser that far. But
I just think it's neat.
You don't have SP.
I just think it's neat that Mecha went to the trouble of programming in something like that to begin with, because I mean, could have very easily just made it not change any form of state or any form of recognition in terms of this section, and just think that, as per usual, it should just be dispensing SP. So it's really kind of a neat little, like, Mecha's obviously packed the game with Easter eggs and casual things that all players are going to want to find and, you know, probably geek out at, but it's just a neat little point of detail that you have to appreciate.
Yeah, I want to chime in on that, because the final secret still hasn't been found. I have spent countless hours, and there are others, shout out to Norimaki, who also spent countless hours trying to find it. After 5 months, still no relief. But yeah, after the turbo tunnel from Battletoads on our bike, we have our EXO friend that is a transformer, a robot in disguise, which basically goes from a bike to now a mech, which is kind of neat. Gives us this nice, as you call it, a Turtle Beach safety net. What was the English word for that again? Airbag?
Yeah, the airbag. So we basically go from turbo tunnel to turtle airbag.
Yeah, and the neat little thing is when you get launched and you hold right in the middle of it, you just get launched a little bit more to the right. Meshia actually going for the door clip and getting it. Well done, well done. You only have a very, very small window, because when you dash, the game registers your dash to hit the enemy behind the door, which is kind of funny. Mini also tried to go for it. Unfortunately, didn't make it, as the enemy wasn't far enough behind the door. But still, takes down the door quite effectively, and goes then to the EXO suit as well.
So Mini's not going to get some extra essence in this second section. It shouldn't be too big of a deal, because if you notice, because of the lack of orbiter purchase, Mini already has more essence than Meshia does. So it's not really the end of the world, and our runners are going to have a chance of grabbing a fresh SP dispenser after this section, so there's not really any impact there either.
No, it's just a little bit of extra padding and getting yourself the choice of, do I want this or do I want that? And Is this going to help me go faster? It gives you the option to purchase health, for example. It's the little things that can basically change your run left to right a little bit. But yeah, with that, we have one of the other vehicles in the game that unfortunately we can't get to right, but it's a plane, which we have to attack aggressively. It spawns on 3 certain locations. If you just follow its pattern, it's pretty much scripted. So we mash it, we bash it, and then it goes down nice in this corner here, being just but a stepping stone for us to continue. And this last 2 rooms of the exo section, unfortunately, you have to get through a certain amount of enemies that deal like 3 damage, because you have this pink purple fire that deals 3 damage. You have flying enemies, which are of course dangerous. You have these guys throwing out those purple fire parts, and they have shields. So the thing you're trying to go through is to get through it as quickly as possible until you get to the Imperator, which is already happening on Meshia's side, and yikes, that's the end of our exo ride, quite literally. So F for our exos. May they rest in peace.
I love, by the way, that you can notice during the fade-in that the SP dispenser is like feeding SP to your unconscious body, and you can just hear it going whoop, whoop.
That is true. It's a small thing, but it's really funny nonetheless.
So yeah, this is like notoriously one of the most difficult rooms, and Meshia always opts to do this without any form of health refill. Our runners, if they have the extra essence to do so, will normally buy the health refill that you see many doing here. Sometimes if you don't, then you can opt to save and quit out, or just take a voluntary death. Meshia does this room quite differently. Doesn't activate the lasers at all, doesn't activate the security system, so there's definitely less threats. But it's still scary to go in here with just 1 health.
I'm not doing it.
No, I refuse. As should everyone else watching.
that is the most notorious death loop room ever. So Meshia just used the charged Pogo strat just to save a possible hit on the SP dispenser, because most of us actually lose the SP dispenser in the previous room, because that section is just so hard. Try to get through it damageless, especially because you activate a defense system. So you either have to opt to wait, or you go fast. And we go fast, so we activate the laser. And Mini actually still also has 1 health left on the SP dispenser, which is really beneficial. Takes out an extra green enemy down in the air, just to make it a little bit safe. Doesn't mean the death loop run is over, because at the part where Meshia is right now, there are 2 rooms. They are also notorious for being run killers, as you get the SP and you go fast, but as soon as you make a single misstep, like you try to go fast and the game is like, okay, go fast, but as soon as you do not keep up with the pace of the game will punish you for it.
These little explosive pieces of tubing here, you'll see Meshia did earlier, and you're very likely going to see Mini do it in a moment here, is they get destroyed via the red sections or the orange sections there, but you can actually toss a kunai and you can destroy it beforehand. Mini not going for the strat. So right there, as you're coming along the top ledge, you can kind of preemptively toss a kunai, and the explosion will cause that to start blowing up. Mini having a little bit of issue because of the lack of SP. There's a big refill here, thankfully. And Meshia's on to 9.
Yeah, Chapter 9 with an SP dispenser, might I add. That is a rare treat to watch, in my opinion.
A full SP dispenser.
That's even more rare. Making really quick work of the bits of Hunter Tank that is trying to be reassembled, but yeah, we go fast, so we destroy the Hunter Tank before it has a chance to be assembled. So then we end up on a field room where you are basically trying to outrace the electric cycles that get shot into the water. And then we take an initial damage boost, quickly do a rising fire to hit one of these turrets above us quite quickly. Meshia is going really fast. I have a hard time to actually catch up to what he's doing, but he's basically going through the turrets. We're using SP dispenser. to avoid any damage. So you see the turrets firing bullets, but the dash gives you an amount of iframes. So you see him dash through it really fast. As you can see on Mini's side as well, he's making great work of how to use those dashes, get through the air, and then quickly also destroying all these turrets. Nicely executed. But yeah, the belief we have now with Meshia being on the infamous boat, which is the third and final auto-scroller of the game, is as long as we say long boat, we trick the game into thinking it's going to give us a quick boat, because we still haven't figured exactly out what triggers it. My belief is that you trigger it before you get on the boat, but we have no idea whether you get a long boat or a quick boat, and the difference is about 10 to 15 seconds. So I wish the same boat upon both of our runners.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to see a race decided by what boat the runner happens to get. I mean, as much as we all want to see short boats all the time for PBs and whatnot, at the end of the day, like as long as we see an equal boat in a race, that's the best thing.
The blue flying enemies, I call them Bob. They're funny. You can make them roll off the boat if you want to. And Meshia actually gets a longboat, so that's quite unfortunate. So I hope MiniSebrango also gets a longboat. The game wasn't tricked this time. Commentator's curse, I blame myself for it. And with that, we're up to Chapter 10. And Chapter 10, the game is like, okay, here's a checkpoint, here's a war point. We're gonna pull no punches, here's a boss. Good luck. But we get an SP dispenser, and we have already mentioned SP makes us quite strong. So what's going to happen here is we're going to melt the boss without you even having a chance to listen to its great soundtrack, which is made by Triangle.
That was really close. Meshia didn't end up making use of the parries and was basically one health tick away from getting the healing, so that could have been a little bit disastrous.
I had my heart in my throat. He actually opts to skip the checkpoint.
Yeah.
Okay, Meshia, please.
You can just run off that ledge and hit the checkpoint, so that one's always been questionable to me. Because this section is certainly scary. Looks like Nori is reporting that there was a short boat on the right, so Mini did get the short boat and was able to pick up basically 10 free seconds.
Oh, Meshia made it safe to the next checkpoint. So at least the SP dispenser probably... He still carries it, by the way. Hello? Whereas Mini, unfortunately, took a bit of damage on the Commandantron fight. He's going to have to deal with a little weaker SP dispenser, but it shouldn't be a problem for Mini. Knowing Mini, it's he's going to dash and right zoom. There are so many words for going fast, but he's going to zoom right through it. As you can see here, he's going through these enemies, grabbing that little bit of cash on top there. And he tried to go for the dangerous Pogo strat, which gives us a little bit more downwards velocity, but it gives us no control on where we're going to end up. Ooh, okay, he gets through that section also safely. That's nice.
Meshia looking really comfortable here, has not lost any HP on this SP dispenser. Is basically just kind of doing it all by the books. There's nothing really too unusual. Big flurry of stars there to take out that wall. There's a couple different ways, and we're gonna see how the spider rail fight goes.
Oh yeah, don't talk to me about spider rail. That one hell today. But spider rail, you basically do 2 charged slashes. You throw some kunais at him. He somehow opens up his eye, which makes him really vulnerable. Keeps it there because he has low enough health to trigger his onion ring phase, and we just throw the onion rings back at him because we think they're raw. He didn't like he didn't like that, so he started crying, and then he died for some reason. Making quick use of our parries, of course, again, firing them back at him.
You see Mini on the right side using some charge parry strats to actually send the particles off to the right, and they home into that wall. So a little bit of time saved there just by using that strat. Gonna see how this spider rail fight goes.
Opting for the stream startup strategy. Ooh, missing just a slash. Could be that the eye is not opening. Yeah, the eye refuses to open. So in this case, you want to throw charged kunais at the closed eye, because the kunai can actually explode his eye while it is stuck on it. But unfortunately, he has to wait.
Their lunch money.
Yeah. I personally like to use those miniature spiders that crawl over the floor that he spits out as refilling refilling your SP. Because sometimes you don't get to carry the SP dispenser all the way up there.
She making short work of Evaporator.
Yeah, he had a really nice first phase climb, and then of course by the book, the second part of the climb as well. But yeah, Apparator, he comes up. We have an SP dispenser. We dash through him a couple of times. Make quick work of his entree as he comes back down. And with that, he's dead. So next up is the progenitor fight, the actual fight. And he spits out projectiles that spawn new projectiles. And we hit those right back at him with a parry. And that is enough to allow us to basically get to the third phase of Progen. And there's different ways to deal with this version of Progen, because you can actually use the Pogo on the side here, or you can use the charged Pogo attack to hit him in the main center section there. And with that, it's actually already a pre-G on Meshia's side. Let's see how the Apparator fight goes on MiniSebrango's side. Also doing quick dashes, few rising fires, well executed.
Yeah, Machia coming in really close to PB. It's worth noting PB is 55-20. So it's going to be a little bit over that with the cutscenes, but still an amazing run. And Mini, of course, had a couple hiccups a little bit earlier, but back end has been very strong. Looking at splits was plus 41 for a period of time and is now down to plus 26. So has even had a really strong second half.
I'm not gonna lie, if Mini didn't have that death, I bet he could still win this.
Yeah, that one death was actually really consequential, unfortunately, and made a big difference.
There's just after this, we basically have a glorified cutscene that we need to execute, and then we free our master, and then it's official GG's as soon as we hit the last switch. Meshia actually not opting to go skipping the Super Saiyan thing. You can the charge up animation can be skipped by using a downwards pogo as soon as you enter the sphere that the elementals give you. And also a pre-G for MiniSebrango.
Official racetime.gg time of 56:11.
Ooh, that's amazing. To do that in a race setting. I mean, even Mini is going to get a 56. It's been absolutely phenomenal. Let me tell you that. They've been literally at each other's throat for a really long time until, of course, Mini did get that death there, but it didn't stop him from closing in on Meshia so much.
Yeah, definitely did not get tilted by it. Really, even made up time in the Pro Gen fight. Is only 21 seconds behind PB now. Oh, the last star. And the tall pogo. Boonk.
Gotta love that little bit of extra swag added to the run.
Big GG to Mini as well. I'm showing a 57:14. Official race time is a 57:15. Congrats to both.
Very well done. Congratulations to both of our runners. It was a phenomenal race. It was an absolute joy to look at. Let me tell you that.
So that means our finals are going to consist of Turkey versus Mashia in what is going to be a best of 3. And then after the initial best of 3, if Mishia were to win that, there would be essentially a bracket reset and then another best of 3. So we still have up to potentially 6 races left in this tournament so far, but it could be over in as little as 2 additional races. We're going to have to wait to find out, and I'm going to, of course, see if we can get Mini in here, see how he's feeling. He usually likes to take a moment, I believe, to just relax for a second.
I'm gonna be really biased here for a second, but I actually want I want Meshia to upset Turkey, so just so that we can see more of those two.
Yeah, right now we don't have the last match scheduled at the moment because it is, of course, the finals, and we just determined who is going to be participating in that. So you guys are going to have to keep an eye out for that one. GG, Mini. That was a very strong race.
Thank you.
That was indeed very well executed. So, how are you feeling after this run? I mean, did you feel behind at certain points, or did you think you were ahead at certain points? Because it was really neck on neck. The most difference that you guys had between each other was like a room difference, or like maximum 30 seconds.
That's good to hear. I didn't expect to win today. Mishia just PB like this week with 55-20, and the time he had today is even better than my PB. So I'm happy to hear that it was tight and that it was good to watch, because that's what I expected. I gave my all, but at the end of the day, it was the one who's supposed to win won.
And you know what? You put in an absolutely amazing effort in the tournament. You've gotten some PBs yourself during races, after the fact. You had your first race in the second round of the upper bracket, which was because you had gotten a bye, being a higher seed. And you had that really close race with Space Narc to start off with. And then you fought your way through the entire lower bracket. You had your rematch with Space Narc, which ended up being also a really close and amazing race to watch. So absolutely huge respect for fighting the good fight after taking that initial loss. You really kind of bounced back, and you PB'd, you won races, and hopefully you leave the tournament feeling like you're in a better place.
Yeah, for sure. I PB'd even during a race, so what else could I ask for more? And I watch all the races, and when I rewatch my match and I see that it's a good show, I'm always happy. So it was a good run in the tournament, and I'm pretty happy with it.
Awesome. And what about you, Diane? Did you have any final words for us today about how you feel about the race or kind of the tournament as a whole?
Well, the tournament as a whole has been pretty wholesome, to be fair. Everybody cheers each other on. Doesn't matter what time you put up with. We all want you to win, basically. If you're the underdog or the winner, doesn't matter. We're all here to support you. So I'm really happy that you're organizing this tournament for this. And I hope to get close to MiniSebrango's PB maybe one day. But first, my goal is going to be sub-hour. So I'm going to leave with that. I'm going to say thank you for organizing this. And MiniSebrango, you put up an excellent race.
Thank you.
Awesome. And thank you guys for participating. Thanks for helping out with commentary today as well. Make sure to follow not only our runners, but my co-commentator as well. I'll pop all the links in chat as per usual. Keep an eye out for the finals and when they end up being scheduled. It's very likely going to be a weekend just due to differences of time zones, but we don't have an exact date now. So keep eyes on that. Hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, and thanks for hanging out all. Enjoy the rest of your day.